All right, everyone. Welcome to episode 35 of the Detroit Sports Podcast. As you can hear from our bumper music, we are paying tribute to the late Ultimate Warrior. I heard the news yesterday on Twitter late at night that the former legend of the World Wrestling Federation had died suddenly on Tuesday night. And I was just floored because I had just watched his great return on Monday Night Raw the night before. And so that's why I'm really kind of bumming out to start this podcast. But you know what? The Ultimate Warrior put his stamp on the wrestling industry, and he got a chance to make amends in the WWE by being inducted into the Hall of Fame. He showed up at WrestleMania, and he made his return on Raw and made a great speech. So I'm a little bummed out to start the podcast, but you know what? All childhood memories are positive, and he was a big part of my childhood. I don't know about you, cuz. What's going on today, Adam?
Not too much. You know what the best part of the Ultimate Warrior was?
What's that?
In the middle of his match, I don't know if it was a giant booger or if it was just the way his paint would peel off his face. It always looked like he had a huge thing of snot just hanging out of his nose when he was wrestling. It was incredible. I loved it.
Welcome to the Detroit Sports Podcast. This is the Doc and Jock Show. We got a great podcast for everyone. We are going to hit on the Tigers. Oh, man, they're playing right now in L.A. They're going to play the second game of a 2-game set versus the Dodgers. We're going to hit on what we saw on the first game and touch on some concerns that Adam and I have, obviously regarding the bullpen, the lack of run support for the Aces, our concerns regarding their play. Right now, they stand at 4-2, and there's just some concerns regarding the style of play that we've seen now with our Tigers. We are going to play a round of Jock Jams. I got some questions lined up for the Jock, and he's going to knock them down. To end the show, we got some news regarding the Pistons, regarding the Lions. We're going to touch on some things with the Lions, Red Wings, and Pistons. Cuz, you ready to get this podcast started?
Let's do it.
All right, cuz. First game versus the Dodgers, and now we see a trend. The bullpen is the biggest concern, and it has come to fruition. Biggest weakness of this ball club. It could be a potential concern. Now, everyone's saying, well, it's still a little bit early, but, I hate having flashbacks to last year's playoffs, but I'm already having them. The starters are going 8 innings, only giving up 1 run. Now, yesterday, Max Scherzer was just dealing. The Tigers tied the game late, but the bullpen in the 10th inning started off. Jabba Chamberlain came in, gave up the first walk, and then Phil Coke came in. Everyone around town is kind of noticing that, this guy shouldn't really be on the roster. And everyone's kind of talking like, ooh, this guy's quickly becoming public enemy number 1. A guy that's just really having a hard time from spring training now into the regular season, just getting guys out. And so, besides his good run, that one playoff series versus the Yankees, and that one moment when he closed out that series, he really hasn't done all that much. And so, this bullpen is kind of a makeshift unit. And right now, you got reports coming out that Joe Nathan's arm is dead.
What the hell is that about?
Really? Joe Nathan is the guy that's supposed to be the anchor of this bullpen. And so you got Al Albuquerque giving up home runs. You got Jabba Chamberlain, whose slider yesterday was, it was nice. It was a good slider, had a lot of movement, but it just was kind of evident that he doesn't really have a lot of command. And do you see his motion? His motion is so violent and it's so busy that I don't even know, it seems like he's putting in all his effort to get through one pitch. And his fastball got up there to 95, 96. But his command is something that leaves me very concerned. And so right now, what is your take on the bullpen, what you've seen now in the first couple games?
I think this was one of our bigger concerns going into the season. Let's just kind of look at some numbers real quick. The relievers are giving up over a hit an inning, averaging 1.28. As a group, they have an ERA well over 5. It's 5.74 currently. They're averaging less than a strikeout per inning. And as a unit, they have a whip of 1.6. And as we discussed in earlier podcasts, whip's the one thing that I hold for a pitcher to be proof that you are either A, getting the job done, or you're not even coming close. With whip, you want it to be as close to 1 or lower than 1 as possible. A good whip is 1. So anything less than that, you're outstanding. Anything more than that, we've got questions. And they're at 1.6 right now. So as a unit, they are awful right now. They are horrible. This bullpen leaves a lot to be desired. With the news coming out on Wednesday that Nathan has dead arm syndrome going on, that he might possibly have to go on the DL. That raises eyebrows and makes that unit that much more horrendous. I mean, that guy's already blown a save out of the 2 opportunities that he's had. Now, you're talking about Jabba Chamberlain. He's already had Tommy John surgery done to that arm that you're talking about where he throws so violently. Phil Koch, we knew what we had with Phil Koch. Just up until last evening, or on just up until Tuesday night against the Dodgers, that guy had an 81 ERA going into that game. I mean, that's unbelievable. It means for 9 innings, that guy's given up 81 runs. Have you ever heard of anything as ridiculous as that? It's monstrous. So I don't know why Phil Koch was brought back. I don't understand that. I know that this rotation for the bullpen was basically centered around Bruce Rondon being your 8th inning guy to get you to Joe Nathan. He got injured. So now you're doing a little bit of shuffling. Albuquerque's really not getting the job done. Out of everybody in that bullpen, he's probably your most consistent, and that's scary because you've already said he's getting dinged up for home runs. So as a unit, this unit is weak. This unit was constructed poorly. This all goes right back to Dave Dombrowski and what happened in the offseason. He did a bad job really focusing in on what this team's weaknesses were. And I don't know why he thought that it would just all of a sudden get better because we got a new manager, or why it would just all of a sudden get better because it was a new year. This was an issue last year. You thought he would have addressed these issues and maybe, brought somebody in to really help sync this thing up, because this is bad. This unit is bad. You've got guys going out there, and you touched on it. The aces are sitting there putting in a good 7-8 innings, and then you're sitting there turning it over to these guys, and all they got to do is get 3 outs, and they're struggling to get 3 outs. So as a unit, this unit is just weak. I don't think there's anything else you can really say about them. They're weak, and they're really bringing down this team. This team has the potential to be a World Series caliber team if this unit was right. If the bullpen was right, I could see us talking about, you know what, we're going to go into LA, we're going to beat the pants off LA, and we're just going to keep it moving. But that's not happening.
Now, I checked out your blog on our website at DetroitSportsPodcast.com, and you basically said that the way this bullpen is constructed and the way that they're performing right now doesn't give you any confidence that they can make a playoff run and win the World Series. And everyone out there, Doc and Jock, believe that this is a season where we need to contend and be strong in the playoffs. And so you noted in your blog, and it was a good plea, it was a great piece there. Phil Koch has a 40 ERA. And last year, he early on in the season, he had an 80 ERA, which I know now it's a small sample size, but really, with that said, Phil Koch is not a productive player. And right now, he's drawing the ire of the fans. People are wondering, okay, can we trade him? Can we cut him? It's just, if we're in close games, I just don't feel comfortable that Phil Koch or Jabba Chamberlain are going to be productive members of the bullpen. And some people are, saying, well, you're complaining too much or it's still too early. But here's the thing. This team is going to be in a lot of one-run games. And so when it comes down to it, Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander have gone now 4 for 4 in terms of quality starts. So they're giving the Tigers the best chance to win. It's going to be tough to watch them, only give up 1 and 2 runs and then lose. That's just really tough.
Let's look at the meat of their bullpen. Their top 3 guys that they sit there and that they rely on heavily. You got Albuquerque with a 6 ERA. You got Joe Nathan with a 6.75 ERA, and you got Jabba Chamberlain with a 13.5 ERA. Like you said, a small sample size. All these guys have anywhere from 2 to 3 innings on them, but it just goes to show that bullpen's just not getting the job done. And then you factor in Phil Koch with his 40.5 ERA. It's not good. The most reliable relief pitcher they have on this team is Drew Smyly, and he's a starter. The only reason he's pitching out of the bullpen right now is because they had a rain delay with Kansas City. So the schedule allowed for them to be able to move him back and to try to stretch him out a little bit slowly and work him into the rotation from the bullpen. And he's been the best pitcher that they've had thus far.
Now, let's talk about another concern. Now, it's been pretty obvious right now that the Tigers lineup is filled with right-handers at the top. With that, 5 out of 6 games, you're going to face right-handed pitching. There just aren't too many left-handed pitchers. And so, you and I had a talk on another show, on the Churko and Company show, regarding the loss of Prince Fielder. And so I had said that I have a concern. Maybe we are going to miss Prince Fielder's bat more than we know. And not just the fact that he was covering and providing protection for Miguel Cabrera, but he was also a left-handed bat in that lineup. Right now, it's becoming pretty obvious that, you know what? The run support is not sufficient because the right-handed bats are not coming through, and pitchers like Danny Herron have come through and shut them down. That just kind of drives up the value for a left-handed bat in terms of Stephen Drew. Not only for the fact that he could have been a reliable infielder, but he provides that left-handed bat that breaks up the dominance in terms of the lineup. And so right now, run support and the bullpen are very big concerns going forward. Now, right now, we're standing at a 4-2 record. We are going to play a series versus San Diego, and then because we got a 10-game homestand. So we got a chance now to play a lot of games at home, kind of, gain some momentum. And so obviously we played very well in the first homestand at Comerica Park, going 4-1. And so, these concerns have to be shored up. Yes, this lineup has the potential to explode on any given game. But more often than not, we're seeing games where they're only scoring 1 and 2 runs. And going forward, the offense kind of has to step it up. And I'm kind of concerned now with, Torrey Hunter. And so I think Brad Ausmus is going to give him the game off tonight versus the Dodgers so that he can have another day off before the series starts versus San Diego. But now it's already started. Torrey Hunter's nicked up. The offense is kind of stale. I just think that with the right-handed dominance and in terms of putting runs on the board, that's going to be a concern going forward.
And to drive home your point about Torrey Hunter, he's the guy who's leading the team right now with home runs. He's got 3. Normally you're counting on Cabrera or Martinez for that. But let's delve into these stats here to kind of back up the point what you're saying about this team and how they can't seem to hit anything right now. They're ranked 13th out of 15 in the AL in runs batted in and runs scored. The only teams behind them are Houston, who are dreadful, and the Kansas City Royals, who are struggling right now. Also, they have the lowest at-bats at 202 in the American League. So those 2 stats right there are pretty telling. And when all your power is coming from your soon-to-be retired right fielder in Torrey Hunter, who's now got a banged-up knee, that's an issue. I think Cabrera's going to get hot and Cabrera's going to get his. You know this. Martinez is going to do okay. He's going to do well. It's just an issue with the rest of these guys. It seems like again, it's that boom or bust mentality. I really feel like we could have been doing this podcast last year and talking about the same exact issue because this was the same thing that plagued them early last season. It was either they would sit there and they would have these close games where there'd be absolutely no run support, or they would have these games where they just exploded for 7, 10, 15 runs, and you'd be like, where was that the last 2 games? And I think it's just the way this team is made up. I'm going to keep hammering this point probably all season, and everybody who's listening to us right now is probably going to be sick of it. But I think this is a lot of Dave Dombrowski's fault. I don't think he did a good job this offseason. I really think he underwhelmed. I don't think he brought in the pieces that he needed to bring in to really shore up this batting lineup and to shore up that bullpen. I mean, the rotation, we know the rotation is sick. You've got 2 Cy Young winners on it. 2 guys who you can plunk them down anywhere at any time in baseball history, and you know those guys are going to win you games on their arm alone. And then after that, you've got a great 3rd spot rotation pitcher in Sanchez. Your 4th is Porcello. And then you've got Drew Smyly, who looks good coming out of the bullpen thus far. Do you realize that the best pitcher, I guess, per ERA right now is Rick Porcello? He's given up less than 1 run.
Oh, his start versus the Baltimore was great. A lot of ground balls. He had his command, and it's good because we got to remember with Rick Porcello, he's still very young, and he's been with the organization since he was 19 and 20 years old. So he is coming into his own, and I just think that with time, I think he's a great 4th pitcher, and he can possibly become a pitcher who has the potential to be a third starter. But he fits perfectly in that role. You got the big 3 in Verlander, Scherzer, and Anibal Sanchez, and he just fits in perfectly at that 4th spot because he's not facing the other team's best pitcher on most games, and so he's going to have a chance to be good. And I think that he's been the subject of a lot of trade rumors. Rick Porcello is someone that we could trade, but I just think that he has a lot of value as a 4th starter on this team, and I just think that he needs to be more consistent and as well as continue to, showcase all his pitches and not get too reliant on a fastball. And as long as he gets a lot of ground ball outs, then he can be a very effective pitcher in a park like Comerica. Now, in terms of other concerns regarding the Tigers, your favorite player, Rajah Davis.
can't field the baseball to save his life.
Can't field the baseball. And so he's kind of becoming known around circles as a one-trick pony, and that the man is an epic base stealer. He is a guy that can get around the bases, but he can't hit. He's not great defensively, and he's not a guy that we can consistently put out there in the outfield. And so that's really tough in that, we need players that can have, that have skills in multiple areas. And so Rajai Davis just doesn't cut it. And so the injury to Andy Dirks is a really challenging one for the Tigers. And like we said, they're platooning the outfield. So a concern I had in the first game versus the Dodgers, in the ninth inning, Kinsler had scored after Victor Martinez tied the game. So you got the winning run at first base. And so Brad Ausmus decides to send Victor Martinez, and he gets thrown out at second base. That was not a great tactical move on Brad Ausmus's part, because you got a base runner, and I understand he's trying to be aggressive, but at that time, I think that you have Austin Jackson at the plate. You have a chance to move the runner with base hits, but at the same time, I can understand he's trying to be aggressive, but Victor Martinez is not the guy I think that you want to steal with.
Yeah. When you say Victor Martinez, lightning speed and an eloquent base running does not pop in my head. I'm thinking slow and struggling to turn what a normal double would be for somebody else. I just have this vision of him bending first base, gritting down on his mouth guard, and him sitting there struggling to slide into second on what should normally be a stand-up double.
So then you go to the 10th inning, power outage. Nothing happens, and then the Dodgers, Jabba Chamberlain walks the first batter, and the rest is history. And so Phil Coke comes in, gives up the game-winning run, and the Tigers lose the first game. A close game, but one of those games that you could have won. You had the momentum, and I think they lost 3-2, correct?
Yes.
And so now we're 4-2. We got another game versus the Dodgers tonight. I was just telling you, I'm a fan of these 10 o'clock games. I know most people may struggle because of their work schedule, but the first game, I got home, I kind of relaxed, got to sit back, all the kids were asleep, I got to sit back and kind of watch the game, and so I kind of was like, wow, I'm digging this 10 o'clock start, and you were kind of like, meh, no big deal, because you're probably too old to stay up and watch the whole entire game. Did you watch the game last night?
I fell asleep during the 7th inning. Actually, I think I fell asleep at a commercial break between when they were changing over in the middle of the 7th. It was going into the 8th I fell asleep because I watched Scherzer pitch the 7th and then went to a commercial, and when they came back, it was the top of the 8th. So, yeah, I fell asleep, dude. I hate the 10 o'clock starts. They kill me. I can't stand them.
Now, just, regarding Prince Fielder, do you kind of see my point regarding the fact that we might need some more left-handed bats in the lineup to kind of break up the monotony, because these good right-handed pitchers can pretty much get out predominantly right-handed batters.
Yeah, I totally understood what you were saying about Cabrera or about Fielder, and why you felt that it was almost essential to have somebody or something like a Fielder where you could get some power from a left-handed bat. The thing is, I think that Cabrera will be fine. Cabrera right now is hitting .292, and I think he only has one home run right now. He doesn't look like vintage Cabrera yet. He is prone to these slow starts, and then next thing you know, the guy booms in like game 10 or 12, and then he's on for the rest of the season unless he gets hurt. I think Cabrera is going to pick it up. I like having Victor Martinez behind Miguel Cabrera because Victor Martinez is a career 300 hitter. He's a switch hitter, so it means he can play left. He can bat from the left or from the right side, and I think that gives that lineup a little bit more versatility. I would have liked them to have gone out and gotten another bat that maybe slide in behind Martinez. And if it was a left-handed bat, that's great. If it was a power bat, that's even better. But they didn't go do that. And again, this goes to Dave Dombrowski. He went and he basically dropped $5 million a season on a guy like Rajai Davis, who can't even play his position out in left field. So again, more bad moves that has put this team in kind of a bind early this season already. And that's probably my biggest concern, is what Dave Dombrowski has basically done and how Dave Dombrowski has constructed this team so it will play out for the rest of the season. And that's probably the most bothersome thing to me right now, is just Dave Dombrowski and the way he's built this team.
And stay tuned for Jock Jams, because we have another issue that may be lingering for the Tigers going forward. So stay tuned for Jock Jams, and we're going to talk more about issues related to the Detroit Tigers as well as other sports issues. Stay tuned. right, everyone. Welcome back to the Doc and Jock Sports Show on the Detroit Sports Podcast. I just want to thank everyone for their support by visiting our website at DetroitSportsPodcast.com. We got everything related to Detroit sports that you could ask for. We got sports blogs. We got tickets. If you need tickets to any sporting event in the area for the Tigers, Pistons, Wings, the Lions, you can get them from our website. You can get great sports deals on sports gear, memorabilia. Check out our website at www.detroitsportspodcast.com, and you can follow us on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. Thanks for your support. We love bantering with the fans, and it's a great way to interact with everyone out there in the Detroit area. All right, cuz, you ready for a great round of Jock Jams?
Oh, yeah, dude, I can't wait. I've been looking forward to this all week.
All right. I knew I could, when this came across the wire, I knew it would piss you off. So I'm going to start with that first. How do you feel about Drake hosting the ESPY Awards? And are you a fan of the ESPY Awards in general? Did you even know that?
No, but now I do.
Drake is the host of the 2014 ESPY Awards.
I hate that Degrassi motherfucker, dude. I swear to God, nothing makes me more upset than Drake. I was sitting there flipping through. I have DirecTV at home. I was flipping through the channels, and they had the Drake takeover on Fuse. I wanted to throw my remote control through my TV. Oh, I hate Drake. Host what? What is he? What relevance does he even bring to sports? Really? Are you serious right now? You're not messing with me, are you?
Nope. Right when I seen it, you can look it up during the break. Drake was announced as the host of the ESPY Awards, and I just thought of you right away.
Oh, I just want to throw my microphone right now. What? I hate Drake. Oh, I'm so upset right now. Here's the thing. I like the ESPYs. I think the ESPYs are neat. I think they're niche. I think they're cool. They're fun to kind of watch because at the time when they happen, there's not a whole lot really going on in sports. So it's just kind of cool. It's a little bit of a break. You get to see these guys outside of their normal element, and you get to see them kind of on a red carpet, which is where you don't normally get to see them. So I enjoy it for that fact and that fact alone. However, Drake hosting it, I just don't understand why. Is Lil Weezy going to come parachuting down from the rafters in a baseball hat? Is Nicki Minaj going to sit there and back it up on Drake while he's hosting? Is this going to be like a goddamn BET Awards with sports? What the fuck? Seriously? Seriously, dude. This is horrible. Let's just go to the next question. Shit.
That's funny. I'm not really a fan of the ESPYs. I don't really watch it too often. I don't think maybe I've seen it one time. So, and I think I usually watch it after maybe one of our teams wins a championship because they always do the team of the year, and so they do like a montage of all the champions of the year prior. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of the ESPYs, and I just thought I'd rile you up a little bit, and I succeeded.
I just spit all over my spit catcher too when I was saying that. So, sorry about that. We're gonna have to clean this up here.
All right. I mentioned it earlier in the podcast. There is a concern regarding some off-the-field issues for the Detroit Tigers. Cuz, were you aware that Evan Reed is being investigated for possible sexual assault, allegedly, at the Motor City Casino? Brad Ausmus was questioned, and he kind of said, yeah, I like to check in on players that are having these issues. I'm not going to go into details with him, but I'm going to make myself available and try to help the guy out. And he's going to continue to use him in his same role, I think, from the bullpen. So do you have any concern regarding the issue with Evan Reed and his off-the-field issues going forward with the Detroit Tigers?
I think issues like this should cause concern, and I think this really tests the unity of the team because this can become a giant distraction later on in the season and moving forward. Because if anything is discovered or if anything is found out and he actually did what he's accused of doing, this could become a giant issue for this team. And this team has to sit there and not only get over that, they have to sit there and they've got to try to pull together and support this teammate who, by the looks of whatever evidence is acquired and brought to light, they have to pull together and support him even in the face of that. So this could become a huge issue. Right now, I don't think it's a big issue. Right now, what this sounds like is some lady basically bringing something up, maybe like a money grab is kind of what this sounds like right now. And I could be totally wrong, but all the evidence that has been brought forth so far seems very circumstantial, and it doesn't sound like this is going to go too much further. It sounds like the police are going to do their investigation because they have to investigate this, and then from there it'll just go away because there doesn't seem like there's anything there. And so I think it could be, but I don't think it will be.
Exactly. In terms of these athletes, do they know that the casinos have cameras at almost every corner? If you just walk through a casino and you look at the ceiling, there's cameras everywhere. If you're a professional athlete making 6 figures, 7 figures, if you're making a lot of money, you shouldn't take a date to a casino because one, everyone's going to know, if you're well known, what you're doing. And so if there's an incident going down, they're going to find out about it pretty quickly. And so if you're going to want to be discreet as an athlete and you want to get your freak on, going to the casino is not the best place. You can go to a private hotel in any of the nice areas in Michigan. And so when players, get caught up in this situation, it brings me back to a funny skit from Dave Chappelle.
Dude, you can go to the Suez Motel right there off 8 Mile if you want to. You don't have to go to nice areas. What are you talking about?
Oh, yeah, these athletes
pay by the hour, bro. Pay by the hour.
Pay by the hour motels. I'm sure some of the athletes have done that around town. But do you recall the Dave Chappelle skit where he had the sex contract? Where I was a big fan of the Chappelle Show, and so one of the better skits out there was he's under the covers with a girl, and he's like, "Oh, stop." He pulls out a sex contract with a lady and is like, "I agree that that this is consensual." And these athletes, I don't know, man. You in this day and age, you got to be careful. And so, Evan Reed, man, where was the sex contract? You could have solved this problem right away, man. I don't know what to tell you, man. I'm hoping this is not true. I don't think it's going to be a big distraction, other than the fact that Brad Ausmus has to answer these questions. But I just think that, hopefully he did not commit this crime. It could be a lingering distraction. I just don't think it will be on this team with a lot of veterans. So, all right, third and final question. Another athlete has come out in now college basketball. You have UMass. It just came out today that sophomore guard Derek Gordon of UMass came out to his coach and told him that he was gay. Now, he said that the coach, Derek Kellogg, said that sophomore guard was noticeably nervous when he was told that he was gay over the phone. Now that, Michael Sam has come out, now you're going to have the first openly gay college basketball player. Do you see the floodgates opening for homosexual athletes to come out and be more comfortable in this new era of social media and 24/7 news media content?
I sure hope so. I don't see an issue with it. Again, I know me and you kind of see this a little bit different, but I'm not saying
do you have an issue with it. I'm just saying, do you think now that 2 athletes have come out that the floodgates are open and more people are going to be comfortable, or do you think it's going to be, let's just put out a number, over under in the next 5 years, do you have 15 openly gay athletes?
I'm going to go over. I think it does. I think what happens is by having the one do it and show that there's not anything physical that is going to happen to him, I think it lessens the burden for everybody else, and it allows them to come out and be a little bit more comfortable in their own skin. That being said, I don't think it's going to be easy for any of these players, and from the sounds of it, it was rough for this player to tell his coach, and I think each person's going to have to deal with that individually, but I think this will help open it up, and it will help broaden it, and I think it does shine a little bit of a light on it, and I think it makes it a little bit easier for these players to come out and basically embrace what or who they are. So yeah, I do. I put an over on it. I think 5 years, don't be surprised if there's 25, 30. And I think it'll start slow. You've seen it with 1. Now there's 2. Maybe in another 6 months, there'll be 3. But after that, I think it'll start to pick up. And then from 3, it'll go to 6. From 6, it'll go to 9. From 9, it'll go to 12 to 18. And it'll slowly gain steam that way, I think.
Okay, like I said, times are changing. We are becoming a little bit more liberal in terms of people's attitudes towards homosexuality, and it's just like I said, this season upcoming for the NFL will be interesting to see how Michael Sam is treated. Good job, Jock. Another great round of Jock Jams. I always look forward to firing off questions at you, and you always deliver, so that was good.
Thanks, buddy. I try.
All right.
I sat there, did a little bit of research this week. I was like, what's he going to ask me? I don't know. I was a little bit nervous, so those were good questions. I wasn't expecting really any of those, especially the Drake one. That totally blindsided me.
Once I seen that, I'm like, oh, that's a perfect question. He's going to be mad. He's going to be upset.
I hate Drake so much.
All right, stay tuned. Coming up, we are going to hit on some other important topics in the Detroit area. We are a show dedicated to Detroit sports 24/7. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to the Detroit Sports Podcast. So, the funny thing is about this next segment is Adam and I had a discussion before the show, and I was like, Adam, why aren't you contributing more to the show? I mean, yes, you provide us great insight. Yes, you have the ability to give us some great stats. But why is it that when I say, hey, you need to give us like title these segments, you're like, no. And then you just come like, okay. So I'm like, no problem. I come up with the idea, and you're like, I hate that idea. And then I'm like, okay. I come up with another name for a segment, and you're like, no. And then you're like, why is it important that we come up with names of segments? And so then I was like, well, it's kind of important to kind of have structure to the show. It's kind of important to title the segments because we can develop like a routine that people can look forward to, because a lot of people love the Doctors in Session. They love Jock Jams. They love when you get upset in Jock Slams. And, you know, we've titled other segments, including Spanning the Globe, Checking In. And so you're just like, who cares? And so I'm like, what's wrong with you? And so I was like, did you this morning wake up on the wrong side of the bed? Now, I know you've been married now for a couple months, and so you're a newlywed, but is everything okay on the home front? Let me just double check on you, man.
Let's go through some of these names that you sent me. Let's see. How about King of the Couch Reports, Adam and John Sports News?
I like that. I like that one too.
What else?
Adam and John Sports News.
How about the 411 and the 313? What? What else do we have? Did you know? I understand why we name our segments, and I understand why we do that. I get it. I totally understand why.
But you didn't come back with one. What were you? Did you think about it?
I know I did. I said, why don't
for
we
3 minutes or 4?
What is? We'll just call it the what is segment. It's basically what is your reaction? What is your thought? What's the first thing that pops into your head?
No, you're really weird.
This whole section right here is basically about your initial gut reaction. So we could call it guts if you want. Like, do you got guts? I don't care. We can call it whatever you want. But King of the Couch, what? Are you serious? The 411 and the 313? We're not breaking any news here. We're just talking about rumor and speculation in this whole segment.
The 411 is like you're in the know.
I know.
So I like that, the 411.
All right, fine. The 411 and the 313.
So you don't have to call.
You know what? No, let's do this. How about we do this? For all the fans out there who are listening, how about you name this segment for us? You tell us what you think that you would like this. All you have to do is tweet us or Facebook us and tell us your thoughts for what the final segment should be called for this week. We'll pick the one we like the most, and we'll tell you what it is next week. How about that? Does that work for you?
That works.
Is that cool?
I'll shoot it out there. So what it is, basically, Adam has some rumors and speculations, and he's got some breaking news, or not breaking news, he's got some news regarding the sports teams, and so we just kind of need help naming this segment. So if you tweet us, we will consider naming a segment based on your tweet. So send us a message at Detroit Podcast. Help us name a segment on our show.
Sounds good to me. Let's do that.
Yeah, and so next time you have to be a little bit more creative, because I don't know what your creative juice is out there.
Sorry, I'll have to put my my creative hat on next time.
All right. The first item on the agenda, I like that, the agenda.
And maybe that could be the name of it.
The agenda, I like that. You know what? I like that, the agenda. First up on the agenda, obviously, is the rumor going around town that Joe Dumars may step down, in fact, this week. After a horrid season, we are not even at 35 wins. And in the Eastern Conference, that's competing for the 8th playoff seed. And what's actually pretty sick, yesterday's game versus Atlanta, Josh Smith is hurt. He's not there. Andre Drummond, dominant. Greg Monroe, dominant. That starting combination with Kyle Singler, we destroyed Atlanta. They dominated on the boards. They played great. And, of course, it's kind of like a slap in the face to Joe Dumars in that his guy, not in the game, we played a great game. That's what the Pistons were supposed to look like. So just what's your take that, Joe Dumars may be gone, may resign from the Pistons?
Screw you! You're fired!
When this news initially broke, and I believe it broke earlier this week, myself, I was like, shocker. And when I say shocker, I mean that with all sarcasticness implied. I had expected that he would resign, or he would somehow, it would be done in a class way where he would step down and he would make the organization look good. Whether it was him resigning or it was Tom Gores coming to him and being like, look, you need to go away. I don't care how you go away, but you need to go away. So fax in your resignation letter. Let's just make this let's make this perfect for everybody on both sides here. So especially when they had that Bad Boys reunion, and you touched on it, that hug was awkward. That whole situation was awkward. It just looked awkward, and it felt awkward, and it was awkward. So I wasn't really shocked. I think Joe D resigning is the best way he can go out. It allows him to go out with saving face, and it allows the organization to finally move on from what has been a horrid 4 years now, 5 years.
Yeah, I just think that this cannot end in a good way. It's just the Eastern Conference is so bad. I mean, this is less than spectacular. This is less than stellar. The East, you could have been in the 8th playoff seed with 35 to 40 wins. That's horrible, and you couldn't even get that. So Joe Dumars, unfortunately, is going to be let go, and hopefully it's done in a respectful way. And his phone's going to be lighting up, so don't feel bad for Joe D. His phone will be lighting up, and in the future podcast, we're going to have to start researching some of these candidates out there that I tweeted about that could take over this job. It's going to be a tough job to take over for the Pistons because you're going to have to figure out how to get these players, get a coach to coach these players, and also look at some of the salaries. Because if you can move Josh Smith, if you can move Brandon Jennings, it would behoove them to do it, because this unit I don't think is going to gel and grow together. But time will tell. Also, you found out that there is speculation that the Buffalo Bills might play the Lions on Thanksgiving. And so that is kind of maybe media driven. It might be driven due to the fact that Jim Schwartz, now our former head coach, is the defensive coordinator over there in Buffalo. But you know what, cuz my reaction to that is this. We play Buffalo every season in the preseason, and it's just the Lions-Buffalo does nothing for me. And so if that game is on Thanksgiving, I just don't think that's the marquee matchup. I just think that, yes, we're thankful for the Ford family to allow us to have this tradition in Detroit, but I just think that game should be a divisional matchup. I just think that if you have the Lions versus Green Bay, you have the Lions versus Chicago, or you have the Lions versus the Vikings in a divisional game, you're good. Obviously, there's other teams out there that are great, but I just think that bringing the Bills in here to drum up this kind of, drama and speculation and to drum up reports and things like that, I just think it's stupid, and I don't want to see Buffalo on Thanksgiving.
I'm not really bothered by the Buffalo Bill matchup. I think it'd be interesting. You said it, we play them they're a crossover game every season. It's the one game that we have that you can pencil in. That one and usually we play Cleveland as well. Those are our two games that you can generally pencil in. It's usually the third or fourth game, and you can flip-flop both of those. I don't mind playing the Buffalo Bills. I think it'd be interesting because it'd be the Schwartz reunion party. You basically bring Jim Schwartz in here, and the fans would just let him have it, tell them what's on their mind. So I think it'd be a good release for the fans. And there's so much crossover between the Lions organization and the Buffalo Bills organization. Ralph Wilson at one time owned a small stake in the Detroit Lions before Mr. Ford purchased it and took it over. He then went out to Buffalo, bought the Bills. On top of it, you said it, we have the crossover matchup every offseason. They're generally a crap team. We're generally a crap team. So why not let these two crap teams slug it out? You're right, I'd like to see a team like Chicago or Green Bay, even a Minnesota in here, because I think it's a little bit more spice when it's a divisional opponent. But I wouldn't be upset if it was the Buffalo Bills, especially not after Jim Schwartz left the Lions and is now on the Buffalo Bills sideline. I think it'd be interesting, especially since Jim Schwartz left us with so many memories on Thanksgiving. We had the foot stomp with Ndamukong Suh and Jim Schwartz on the sideline. You had Jim Schwartz throwing the red flag in the Houston game. It just seemed like every time Jim Schwartz would unravel, he would unravel on the biggest stage, which is the Thanksgiving Day game. So I think it'd be great to see him come in here, and maybe he'd unravel, and maybe we'll put up 110 points. It'll look like Madden. Who knows? So I wouldn't mind it.
A little draft news on this podcast. This rumor will not die. It just won't go away. It's on the radio. I know a local show that has their own Twitter thing about this, but there are rumors that the Lions want to move up and draft wide receiver Sammie Watkins. I think this was you putting this on the list to upset me. I just think that this rumor, okay, yes, he's great. Yes, Sammie Watkins is a talented player, but I don't think you move up in the draft to take him. I just think that is a ridiculous notion. I think that this team, even though, yes, it is obvious that cornerbacks don't have an impact right away, but the Lions are not going to win right away. Nobody is projecting the Lions to make a significant run in the playoffs next season. Yes, they may get to the playoffs. Yes, we'd like them to perform well in the playoffs one time, but this is a project, and this project needs to build a foundation. So now you have a lot of the pieces in that foundation. You got the quarterback. You have the elite wide receiver. You've brought in another young wide receiver and paid him a lot of money in Golden Tate. Why move up and draft Sammie Watkins? Draft on defense. This rumor has Martin Mayhew written all over it. I mean, I don't understand why everyone's in love with Sammie Watkins. Is he the next Jerry Rice? Is he the next, Terrell Owens? Is he the next, elite wide receiver out there? Is he the next Larry Fitzgerald? Is he the next Megatron? I mean, yes, he's got blazing speed. He's got a lot of potential. He's projected to do very well. But I don't think we're passing up on a Hall of Fame wide receiver here. Draft on defense, improve on your weakest links in terms of linebacker and cornerback, and let's move on. I can't take this anymore. I can't take this rumor that we want Sammie Watkins. I just think it's rumor and speculation. I just think that it's maybe one of these draft moves that commonly takes place where teams say they want a certain player where they really want someone else. And so I'm hoping that's what the case. I'm hoping the Lions are sending out smoke signals in order to draft the player that they really want. What's your thoughts, Cuz?
Just to let you know, according to NFL.com, Sammie Watkins is rated to be a Pro Bowl caliber player. So that being said, he could basically be a number one wide receiver anywhere else. I'm going to play devil's advocate here. I think we all know how I feel. I feel pretty much the same way you do. Build on defense. First 3 draft picks should all be on defense. That's where they're the most porous at. But let's just play a game called devil's advocate. Why would you not move up and take this guy? He's rated the number one wide receiver in all of the draft. He is probably one of the top 3 players in this draft. He's one of the few players who can come onto your team and make an immediate impact. On top of that, if you draft him, you pair him with Calvin, and you pair him with Golden Tate. Golden Tate, who was penciled in to be your number 2 wide receiver, now moves down to your number 3. So now you have a great number 3. You have Sammie Watkins out there as your number 2 as well. Now you're big and tall along the sidelines, and you've got Golden Tate, best hands in the league, at least according to statistics, cutting across the middle. This basically, your offense now looks like Madden. It looks exactly like a Madden football game. You've got receivers who come out of your backfield in Reggie Bush and Jock Bell. Jock Bell can run between the tackles. Reggie Bush can catch the edge, and he's gone. So now you've got speed everywhere. On top of it, when Calvin Johnson starts to get older and a little bit long in the tooth, Sammie Watkins then steps in, and he becomes your number 1 guy, while Calvin slips to your number 2 and kind of starts to fade out and goes off into the sunset. So you do that. On top of that, I'm going to read you a little something here off of my little NFL mobile app here. This is coming from Path to the Draft with Daniel Jeremiah, who says, I'm supposed to say that this is a deep draft at receiver, and you just sit there and where you are, you take whatever receiver's there. I'm going to say it's time for the Detroit Lions to be bold. Make a move, go up, and get Sammie Watkins. Pair him with Megatron and Golden Tate. I'm all in for it. So there are pundits out there who make the case that this would be a great and bold move. They're closer on offense to having a Super Bowl winning offense than they are on defense, where we both agree that they're very weak and very porous. So why not go out and get a guy who you can basically plug right in right now and basically turn the keys to the Cadillac over to the kid and Matt Stafford and say, hey, run with this. And if Stafford can't make it work this year, you know where you're at next year. You know you need a quarterback.
You know what you remind me of? You remind me of an advertiser's dream. You just throw out some prepackaged pictures of a product, some made-up food products, glorify. You're the kind of guy that just eats up sexy rumors and eats up materialistic items.
Dude, I just argued against myself here.
No.
And it sounded great.
You are someone that's falling
I
for
think
this
I talked
line of
myself
BS.
into moving up to take that pick.
You are falling for the... You're falling for the hype.
Let's trade with Texas. Let's go number 1. Give them our entire draft. Let's do the Ricky Williams draft. We'll give them every one of our picks. We'll take the number 1 overall pick and we'll go pick up Sammie Watkins.
I feel like, at a card table when they say if you can't find the sucker, then you're the sucker. I just feel like you're being duped and being sucked into this nonsense that the Lions just take a wide receiver. Okay, first of all, besides Megatron, in the recent past, have the Lions been successful drafting high wide receivers?
No.
You got okay. So you
no,
haven't
but
been successful.
who's the man making those picks? Your homeboy Matt Millen.
Matt Millen, and now his protege Martin Mayhew might go down that same tree. I just think that this is a move that I think if they pass on it, no one's going to be upset. I mean, yes, all likelihood is he'll come into Detroit on a marquee game, a Monday night game, or a Thanksgiving game.
It'll be like Anquan Boldin all over
Yeah,
again.
exactly, and just light us up for 3-4 touchdowns, and then, Calvin Johnson will drop a bunch of passes. But I just think that in this situation, for the Lions' needs, don't fall into the hype, don't fall into the marketer's dreams, don't fall into all that. Sammy Watkins can be drafted by another team and let him flourish somewhere else. We need a linebacker. We just have so many other needs that it would be a wasted draft pick if we took Sammy Watkins. And so, don't fall into that hype. You need to think like a general manager. Stop thinking like a fan. Think like a general manager who's trying to build a world championship club.
Did you miss the part where I said I was playing devil's advocate?
Yes.
You missed that part?
I understand, but you can't put that out there because people eat that up. You can't put that out there.
I didn't co-sign for it. I just said I was going to play devil's advocate and argue that side. And I think I made a really good point for it. I think I made a really great
So now you believe
explanation. No, let me put it this way. If they were to move up, depending on what they gave up to move up, if they picked up Sammy Watkins and Sammy Watkins actually panned out, you can basically tell within the first 5 games if he's going to pan out. If he pans out, I think it'd be a very dynamic offense. I want them to go defense. I want them to go defense, and then look for athletes on the offensive side. I just think he's a big, tall talent. The guy's got good hands. He's quick. I just think you pair. You know what? It's exactly what I wanted with. Oh man, if I can remember the guy, I'm gonna need your help here because I know you're a bigger Lions fan than me. He was on. He always made the roster. He always made the practice squad roster. He was that one wide receiver who was like 6'5", 6'7". He was gargantuan.
Circus Kirkus?
No, not Circus Kirkus. He was gargantuan, and the guy just, for whatever reason, couldn't catch the damn ball. But he could run the routes, but he just couldn't catch the damn ball. But he was like Megatron-like, but just not as talented. He couldn't catch the football. But you just sit there and you'd see these 2 giant, like, tall trees running down the sideline. I mean, how... The average quarterback is usually 5'11". How are you going to sit there and go up against the guy who's 6'4"? And just, especially these guys are so big and physical, like 235 pounds. These guys are monsters. So you put these big 2 tall trees out there and they just run like gazelles. You just let them go. And that frees up everything across the middle for either Golden Tate, Reggie Bush, or you can sit there and you just give the football to Joy Bell who goes running through tackles. Until he gets to open space, and then for whatever reason, he looks really slow when he gets into the open field.
Okay, so what percentage chance do you give the Lions of taking Sammy Watkins?
Moving up to take Sammy Watkins, or just drafting him outright?
Moving up to take him and drafting him. What are the chances that Sammy Watkins is on the Lions roster?
I think there's a better than 35% chance that he'll end up on their roster. So the only way that they'll get him is if they move up, because I don't think he'll be there at 10.
Yeah, I think Tampa Bay will probably just going to scoop him up.
Either Tampa Bay or Cleveland will.
Because Sammy Watkins would look good alongside Vincent Jackson. That would be...
Exactly, especially since they've packaged up Mike Williams and shipped him out.
Exactly. All right, last thing on the list, last thing on the agenda. The Red Wings tonight are playing the Pittsburgh Penguins. They are currently leading 2-1, and so they just need a point to make the playoffs for the 23rd straight season. So, I'm hoping that the Red Wings can hold this lead. It's going to be tough. I know that the Red Wings are playing a great team in Pittsburgh. They are a potential playoff opponent for the Red Wings because the Pittsburgh Penguins are, no matter what, going to be locked in at the 2 seed, and the Red Wings are likely going to finish in the 7th seed. There's a chance they could finish in the 8th playoff position, and so in that case, we would have to play Boston. But just your thoughts on 2 things. Your thoughts on the Red Wings playoff berth this season, and second, do you think that the Red Wings-Penguins rivalry is up there along the lines of the Wings in Colorado? How do you rank the rivalry between the Wings and the Pittsburgh Penguins with Sid the Kid over there?
I think the Wings keeping the playoff streak alive, I think that's great. We discussed it before. It's one of those things where it's not the most important thing, but it's important to say that, hey, we have this, we participated in this, we were there for this. And plus, it's like a gold star on your organization. You want this thing to go on as long as it can go on, as long as it doesn't hurt you, and as long as it doesn't hurt your team. So I think it's great. I'm very happy that they were actually able to come through, because you got to remember, for most of the season, we're talking like they're not going to make the playoffs. They're not going to make the playoffs. And then within the last 2-3 weeks, we're like, hey, they got a great shot to make the playoffs. And then it's, hey, they got a great shot to be the 8th place team, the 7th place team. Hey, they've got an outside shot to be a 6th place team going into the playoffs. So just that moving up, just up the ladder in the matter of 2 or 3 weeks was just incredible, and it was a fun ride. As far as the Pittsburgh rivalry goes, I think it's one of the better ones in sport. We hate Pittsburgh. I know I do. I'm pretty sure you do. I know most of the guys I play hockey with, they hate Pittsburgh. None of us can stand the Penguins. We hate Sidney Crosby because he's a whiny bitch. Evgeny Malkin looks like Frankenstein on skates. I mean, the guy's a great talent, but he looks like Frankenstein on skates. I hate the way Pittsburgh basically built their team. They built their team basically by abusing the draft. We'll be really, really horrible and tank for probably about 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons, and we'll get all these high draft picks, and then we'll just stockpile everything. After they got decent, then they started doing it the right way. But up until then, the only way that they ended up with Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, is they just sat there and they basically tanked, and the team was in the toilet for years. I hate Pittsburgh. I would love nothing more for us to play Pittsburgh the first round of the playoffs, and I'd love for us to put them out. I think it rates right up there with the Colorado rivalry is dead, but back in the 90s, that was the hottest thing going. So do I think it's right up there with it? There hasn't been the bloodletting that there was in that rivalry. That being said, I think it would probably go Detroit, Colorado in the 90s, and then Chicago, Detroit based on just proximity, and then Detroit, Pittsburgh, just because of all of we played them, Stanley Cup twice. We beat them once, they beat us. Every time we play them, it's always a good game. It's always a tough game. These are two teams who are looked at and looked upon as being two of the best teams in the NHL at all times, at least recently. So you see them playing each other. They got Sidney Crosby too. I mean, you need a villain. You need somebody to hate. Hate the whiny bitch. That's Sidney Crosby.
Yeah, and so in the recent past in the Stanley Cup Finals, each team, the Wings won the Stanley Cup on Pittsburgh's home ice, and then Pittsburgh turned around in that Game 7 and took down the Red Wings to win their Stanley Cup. And most of us kind of had the feeling that the Wings were going to win that Stanley Cup and go back-to-back, but it just didn't happen. And so that was a tough sight to see Pittsburgh skating around the Stanley Cup on Joe Louis ice. And so, yeah, that amped up the rivalry. Everyone around town most fans can appreciate the talent of Sidney Crosby, but he has a really bad reputation of being a whiner, being soft. It's just that he's a really talented player and he's not on our team. And so he has the ability single-handedly to take over a game. But the good thing is kind of the Pittsburgh mirrors us in terms of Fleury is a goaltender that can fall off the map quickly. I mean, that guy's been pulled more often from the net than in recent memory than I've ever seen. I mean, the guy can go ice cold, but at the same time, he can heat up real fast and take them on a run. So in that matchup, it's going to depend really on the play of Fleury. I think that the Wings are going to pester him, and if they get to the playoffs and match up versus the Penguins, I just think it's going to be a good long series. I think it's going to go back and forth, and I do rate the rivalry to be high. I think a lot of fans dislike Pittsburgh, and it's really, like I said, a regional matchup. But it's interesting that a lot of the fans that I talk to around town really want to play Pittsburgh over Boston, and I'm kind of the opposite. I think I'd rather play Boston than Pittsburgh. I just think that Boston is a big physical team, and right now the Wings are becoming into their own. I want to play a team like Boston because with our current style of play, puck possession, we can draw some more penalties against a team like Boston and then make them pay on the power play. And so we can play a tighter series versus Boston.
I'm going to tell you right now, you want no part of Boston.
I think we can beat Boston.
You want no part of Boston.
I think the Wings, if Franzen picks up the pace, if Franzen's more consistent.
He's too inconsistent.
Yeah. I'm saying if Franzen is more consistent, he becomes the mule of the playoffs. If Nyquist is a sniper in the playoffs, if Pavel Datsyuk is in game shape, ready to go, I think that they can go toe-to-toe with Boston and get the upset. I'm sorry that you don't have the faith in our Wings against anybody, but I would rather play Boston than the Penguins.
Boston's on a mission. They're so pissed off after last year in Game 7 in the Stanley Cup. This whole season has been predicated on one thing and one thing alone. Be the best team in the NHL, get home ice advantage, and win the Stanley Cup.
So
they are too big, they are too powerful, they are too talented, and they are too deep on too many different lines.
Give us a report on what you're seeing from Jimmy Howard. Is he rounding into shape going into the playoffs? Is he at the level you're comfortable with to start the NHL playoffs if we get there?
I think Jimmy Howard will be just fine. I think going into the playoffs, he's feeling more comfortable with what his role is now. For whatever reason, he seems to be able to turn it on and just play out of his mind come playoff time or get to lead up into playoff time. I think you see it with the young kids playing in front of him. I think they're more comfortable in their role. I think this whole team has now basically figured out who's going to war and what you can do with each other. You now know what the man on your right and what the man on your left is capable of doing. So I think everybody's more comfortable, and I think that plays a big part because you know what each other's strengths and weaknesses are. So I think Jimmy Howard is now more comfortable with the players in front of him. I think you see that in his game. There are certain games where he basically has put them on his back and he's carried them to victories, making 46 saves, where everybody just looks like they're just kind of skating around in circles doing pirouettes while he's standing on his head. So I think he'll be fine for the playoffs. I like them against Pittsburgh if that's who they're going to play. I think they can beat Pittsburgh. I think it'll be a close series. I think it'll go 6 or 7 games, and I think the Wings can win in 6 or 7.
All right, because just some things now to keep up for the upcoming week. The Tigers are going to play San Diego. You got the Pistons winding down this terrible season. The draft is coming up. So there's a lot of things coming down the pike, and it's going to be an exciting time this spring for the Detroit Sports Podcast. So I want to thank everyone out there for listening to our show. You can support us and visit our website at www.detroitsportspodcast.com. Follow us on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. You can tweet us anytime. I think Adam and I do a really good job of replying to a lot of our fans. I think we're really good follow on Twitter. So please message us, give us your opinion, give us any feedback, both positive or negative. We appreciate all feedback of any kind. You can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. We got new shows coming every single Thursday. We are dedicated 24/7 to Detroit sports. Thanks everyone for listening to the Doc and Jock Sports Show on the Detroit Sports Podcast. See everyone next week.
Go Wings.
Adam and I had a discussion before the show, and I was like, Adam, why aren't you contributing more to the show?
Screw you! You're fired!